Hello everyone, thank you for joining me. I'm David with Softron. And today I want to talk about MovieRecorder, but I want to go beyond the basics and go a little bit into the more pro features that you might not realize are there. So let's dive right into that. So multi-destination, you're probably already familiar with this, but let's talk about it real quick. When you have a source in MovieRecorder, you can have multiple destinations enabled on that source. So that means you can record an MOV, an MXF, and an MP4 all at the same time, and they can each be going to a different location. So you can have it go to the hard drive on the machine, you can have it going to maybe a Thunderbolt attached drive, or maybe a SAN or some network drive that's capable of taking that write speed. So that's perfectly fine. Now, a pro tip with that is you might not realize that you can have the same encoding and write twice. So how to do that? You can just duplicate a destination. So that's going to have all the same encoding you have and just change the path. Now that won't count to MovieRecorder as two encodings. We already know we've encoded it. We're only going to write it twice. So that's going to save on your bandwidth. And that's a great way to do a backup really easily. So that's something I always did is I had a local storage version and then I had one on the network storage. So if the editors took the file as it was still recording or someone went into that network storage and deleted the file, I always had a version on the local storage to give back to the editors. So no one could risk losing the entire day's work. Okay, let's look at the destinations tab. And so when we go to that tab and we can click on an MOV file here, and we're going to hit that gear. Now you see things, of course, like what's the destination's name, what's the destination's path, and you can choose to say erase existing file. But let's look at naming and metadata. And this is where we can build out how the file will be named. And so automatically you can have the year, the month, the day inside of there, and then do an underscore, and you can do recording name. I like to do underscore and write the word take, and then put the counter in. I do another underscore, and then I do hour, minute, second, so we know exactly what this file is. Now, most of you are already familiar with that, but you might not know that you can make subfolders automatically. So you can put a slash between the year, month, and day. And automatically MovieRecorder is going to make subfolders based off that. So we're going to have the year, the month, the day automatically built out, then the recording name. So if you have a large team, they're going to automatically know that on that day, that's where that recording is. That makes it super simple for everyone to know where the files are going. Let's talk about metadata. So with metadata, there's two options there. You can do it embedded into the QuickTime file, or you can use a sidecar file for your MAM. And with a sidecar file, you can set that to output to a certain file path or follow exactly where the recording is set. That metadata sidecar can also be updated while the recording is still happening, and that's useful for cases of crash recording. Now, metadata can also have custom configurations. Now, we have the default QuickTime built into the MovieRecorder settings, but you can make your own. So we're going to go into the settings. So here's one that I made that I think is kind of useful. Of course, you can put in the date automatically, but we can also put a record type. So I can mark this as a pre-tape that we're doing, a program or preview feed, maybe it's the clean feed, or maybe it's a chroma key shoot. And so I have these options I can put in here so I can define what we're doing. Or maybe you have some media providers you're recording from. So I put in a multiple choice option and a default value. And here I did itself, so I mean the studio we're in, our company, but I can say it came from another provider so everyone knows right away where this media is coming from. Be sure to check this key. Now the name is how the user will see the option labeled inside MovieRecorder, but the key is how you will read it in the metadata. Maybe for your MAM, you don't have something so generic as I have here. Maybe something more unique based off your MAM's automations, but that's a discussion with your MAM specialist. I like putting the original file name in the metadata. So I'm copying the same name tokens over. So if someone renames the file after it's finished, you would still have the original name in the metadata, so you can go back and check and see what this file was originally called. It's also a good idea to put the source, the AV preset, and the destination used to perform basic troubleshooting. A good example would be in the case of a bad video capture device. Imagine you have 3 bad files, and you can see that each one was from the same capture device, just in the metadata. All right, back to the screen. Let's go on to the next segment, edit while ingest. I would say most of you know what this is, but maybe not all the differences of segmented versus classic. Segmented means MovieRecorder will update the file in segments. but it is just updating the one file. So this should not be confused with auto splitting, though that is another feature we do have down here on this menu. Segmented does allow all the codecs to be captured in edit while ingest. And support is different based on your edit suite, and there isn't loop recording either. Now, classic mode does require a duration. That's because MovieRecorder will make a video file that is that duration that you specified. So when MovieRecorder starts a classic file, it will actually make a file of that duration and it'll replace the black frames with video. So it's constantly growing. Though you aren't limited to the duration, you can click create a new file, or MovieRecorder can update the file's actual length at the end of the recording with a click of this button. Or of course you can use them both together. An example of that would be if you had an hour duration set, then if your recording went for 75 minutes. The first file would have hit the hour-long duration and made a new file. Then the second file would automatically update to be only 15 minutes, saving you that space, and you would not have 45 minutes of black footage at the end. Now, Classic does allow loop recordings, so you can set longer durations, and then you can have it overwrite from the beginning. But H.264 or HEVC codecs cannot be utilized with Classic mode. The next section of this window is AV Preset. Now that does seem like another obvious setting, but maybe you haven't dug into the settings before and see what's really available. So we do have the defaults, but you can duplicate those and make your own settings. So you can say what the bitrate is, or maybe you want to resize the video. And you can crop, deinterlace, rotate, or change the resolution and frame rate. Now those are all really good if you're using it for a proxy. And in that same vein, you can actually put text overlays like the time code and source, or even custom options you build. You can also put a watermark image right over the recording. AV Preset also has the option to change the file type, so that could be MOV, MP4, M4V, and you can also specify whether the file should have closed captions written to it. The next section in this window is the auto split. Now, I mentioned this earlier. Now, we've had this feature for quite a while, so you can make files split automatically. So you can say whether it's 5 minutes, 10, 15, and you can even make your own custom timing. Now, this might be good if you have longer recordings, say like a conference, and editors are working remotely. This way, the editors don't have to wait for the end of the day to start editing. You can do it in chunks for them and allow them to start working. And remember, you can have multiple destinations. So you can have one file that is the entire duration, and then you can have the other ones split into chunks working for those remote editors. But a new choice inside auto split you might not have noticed is timecode break. So if you are a customer who needs to capture a lot of archive footage, instead of doing a batch capture from a VTR, you can start the recording and MovieRecorder will watch the timecode via RS422 to automatically split the files. All right, the last section of this window is the AppleScripts. So these can be triggered at start and end of a recording. A good use case for the at start is some of you might have MovieRecorder in your rack room, but your studio can be far away. Maybe it's in a different building. Maybe it's only via IP link. And so you might want to have a recorder, a device inside the studio. Now you can always have another MovieRecorder and we can control another MovieRecorder. That's not a problem. But sometimes you just want something simple just as a backup. And so you might have the Blackmagic HyperDeck or the Asiaic Hi Pro inside your studio. And with this AppleScript, we can tell that device to start recording. And of course we can use @end to stop it. So another @end action you can set up is sending a message to a channel like Slack or Teams. Now I have another video that details how to use this, but it's really nice to have every recording's name and file path automatically sent to the editors. So I hope you learned something from this beyond the basics of MovieRecorder, because there's a lot of features inside of MovieRecorder and all we talked about was just one window. And it's important to know where we stand apart from devices like the HyperDeck and the Key Pro, but we're talking about workflows here and how to make it easier, trying to make smarter solutions. So if you're ever looking for more information, you can of course go to softron.tv. You can always send us a message or subscribe to this channel. Thanks for watching.